On Y Media breaking news, Ripudaman Singh Malik, the man who was acquitted in the 1985 Air India bombing, has been shot and killed in Surrey, British Columbia. At 9:30 a.m. on July 14, 2022, Mr. Malik's family was on scene shortly after the shooting that left Ripudaman Singh Malik dead in the Newton area. After reports of shots fired, police arrived and found him suffering from gunshot wounds. That's according to Constable Surabjit Sangha, who said the man was provided with first aid by attending officers until emergency health services took over his care. The injured man succumbed to his injuries on the scene. She continued to say that this appears to be a targeted shooting. A suspect vehicle was located in the area of 82 Avenue east of 120 Street, fully engulfed in fire, and that's the vehicle that you can see that's on fire. Now, the investigation is in its early stages and police are still looking for the suspects and a second vehicle that may have been used as a getaway vehicle. No arrests have been made, and the police believe that because there is a getaway vehicle that they're looking at the suspects and how this took place today. Now, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team has since taken over the case. And when it comes to remembering Air India Flight 182, the Air India bombing is the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. On June 23rd in 1985, 280 Canadians, including 86 children, lost their lives in the bombing of Air India Flight 182. The plane was headed from Toronto to London when a bomb detonated and crashed near Ireland, killing all 329 people on board. It was later confirmed that the bombing plot was hatched on Canadian soil. In 2005, the federal government declared June 23rd the National Day of Remembrance for victims of terrorism in order to honor the memory of the victims of terrorism and to denounce terrorism. Inderjeet Singh Rayat is the only person who has been convicted in relation to the bombings. He was sentenced in 2010 to 9 years for committing perjury at Mr. Malik's trial. Rayat was released from prison in 2016. Before his perjury conviction, Rayat pled guilty to manslaughter for his role in the bombing. Mr. Malik and his Babar Khalsa associate Ajay Singh Bagri were acquitted by the British Columbia Supreme Court judge of murder and conspiracy charges in what was Canada's deadliest terrorism attack in March 16, 2005. Air India, then the country's national airline, was targeted to retaliate against the Indian government for its attack on Amritsar's Golden Temple a year earlier, which left hundreds of Sikh pilgrims dead. Since that terrible day on June 1985, the Government of Canada has worked to investigate the crash of Flight 182 to bring the perpetrators of this act to justice and to make necessary changes to their policies, regulations, legislation to safeguard Canadians from terror. The government has also continually adjusted its approach to airline and national security and security intelligence. In 2007, the Government of Canada established a program to erect 3 new memorials and to refurbish an existing one in Ottawa so that Canadians would never forget the tragedy. The 4th and final memorial was dedicated in Montreal to remember the victims, following those dedicated in Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa. The memorials will forever stand as a reminder of innocent lives lost during the very sad chapter in Canadian history. On June 23, 2011, the government announced a new $10 million initiative called the Kanisha Project, which invests in research on pressing questions for Canada on terrorism and counterterrorism, such as preventing and countering violent extremism, and to help Canada build the knowledge base needed to effectively counter terrorism. The Government of Canada has provided a one-time ex gratia payment to families of the passenger and crew who died in Air India Flight 182 on June 23, 1985. The payments were voluntary and a symbolic payment, and it was provided to families to demonstrate of solitude and recognition for the administrative disdain the families went through and experienced in the years that followed that terrible act of terrorism. And that money was sent out and was paid to the victims' families all 275 of them. And after Ripudaman Singh Malik was acquitted, he resumed his leadership role at Khalsa Credit Union and Satnam Education Society that runs Khalsa schools. He moved to Vancouver, British Columbia. From there to South Surrey, he continued to run a number of businesses, including the Papillion Eastern Imports, which is the clothing company that is based in the building where Mr. Malik was killed on July 14, 2022. Malik also traveled to India for the first time since his acquittal in 2019 after the India government granted him a visa. Then earlier that year, he wrote a letter to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi thanking him for work he had done on behalf of Sikhs. In that letter, he wrote, "I'm writing you this to express my dear heartfelt gratitude for the unprecedented positive steps taken by yourself to redress long-reading Sikh demands and grievances." This was according to the Hindustani Times. It was cited that in his letter that he wanted elimination of the blacklist that he was once on and the reopening of criminal cases for suspects in the murders during the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, as well as the declaration that the riots were in fact a genocide. That is the story of Ripudaman Singh Malik, a man who was acquitted in the 1985 Air India bombing that was shot and killed in British Columbia, Surrey on July 14th, 2022. This is Y Media Breaking News.